Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of Frantz Building Services. Frantz is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from $1.5 million to more than $20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC and this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey, it's Jordan here with the Elite BSC podcast. So I don't often ask this, but if you benefit from this podcast or find it helpful, or maybe you're a member of our group, the Elite BSC Mastermind group, I would appreciate a review on this podcast. It just helps us get the word out and get this content out to more people in the industry. I think it's relevant and helpful, and if you do too, a review would be a huge blessing in furthering that mission. So in today's episode, I want to talk about a report that we go through every month at our company. So just maybe lay a little context here. So our company we do just around $20 million in revenue, and it's spread out in multiple markets and geographies and regions. And so everybody's dispersed. We're probably got maybe a 3.5 hour radius around our home office where people are out. We're performing work for customers or whatever and have branch offices. So we have regional managers in several different geographies. And so once a month, we come together as a group. And so it's some of the key leaders of the corporate office along with the regional managers come together, and we go through a handful of things related to the performance of the company and the particular regions. And this is always a helpful time to, just get together, sort of stay in tune with what everyone is doing, keep relationships tight, and keep people connected that are maybe at a distance from the home office. But it's also a time to look at how we're doing and review ourselves and maybe how each region is doing in comparison to other regions and maybe why that's the case. And as we think about, and this is something for leaders to consider, as we think about the health of our organization, in order to know whether one region is doing well or not, or the company is doing well or not, we need to have certain metrics that we're measuring it against. So, for instance, to know whether or not you have a good blood pressure, you need to know what a healthy blood pressure is in order to measure your current blood pressure against. Same for cholesterol or any other metric or lab that you might use to assess the health of your body. And the same is true for the company. So we have a little 2-page report that our company president, Brian Lewis, puts together. And I'm just going to walk through some of the things that we talk about each month that we're looking at that give us a picture of the health of our organization. So, and I'm looking at the report now, so I realize you don't have this in front of you, but I'm just going to explain the various pieces on the report. I don't know if this is something we've ever shared before. I don't know if I'm at liberty to share all of this, the actual report itself, but I'll walk you through the kinds of things that are on it. So the very first thing at the top left corner in this report is on page 1 is our company revenue. So we're looking at the actual revenue we've had month over month, and so there's a graph that goes down, and we're looking at what January was and February and March and April in comparison to our goal. So we have a certain goal that we're trying to hit each month in the year, and so we look at what the actual is versus the year. And then we have a year to date on that. And so we can see where we're at in projected versus actuals and what percent, we've gotten to achieving that. And then the next piece of this is we're looking at company profit, and which is right next to revenue. So revenue is one metric, profit is another one. So we're looking at a couple of things on profit. We're looking at our gross margin. So we care about, in terms of profit, we care about 2 profit numbers. We care about our gross margin, which is basically all of our revenue minus all of our operating costs, so without overhead. And we want those numbers to be north of 30%. And then we're looking at our net margin for the company. And, we're shooting for, we'd love to see that number north of 10% all the time. And so that is, we're tracking or watching those two numbers there in particular, and measuring what is our target and how are we doing in terms of the current month and also year to date. So sometimes you can have a month that's bad and you can maybe get down about that, but if you look at it in relation to the whole year, things are going well. And so those two numbers are helpful to look at, the gross margin and the net margin as the whole. So that's company revenue and company profit. The next thing that we break some of this down into some more specifics, and we look at the financials by different segments. So we essentially run the same number, the revenue and the profit for all of our operations. So like existing business that our operations team is managing. We also have another little breakdown of any new sales that we've had in the year. So how much revenue we've had from new sales and how much profit in this particular calendar year from new sales. And then we look at corporate overhead expenses and how that's doing compared to the goal. And so it's basically taking the overall revenue and net margin and then breaking it down into a few categories that are helpful for us to see how some of the different components of the business are doing. So we move on to a couple other KPIs. So we're looking at customer retention year to date. So this is a number that we're always tracking. We're trying to hit north of 97%. And so we just have this rolling number where we're looking at how are we doing there year to date. We also have a safety goal of 0 incidents or recordables, and obviously 0 claims. and so we're monitoring that at any given time to see where we're at that year. And it just helps us give an assessment of how we're doing with safety, and are we seeing a trend in a direction that is not good, and it helps us to be able to monitor and keep tabs on that to not let it get out of hand, because as we know that number can certainly affect our insurance costs and our ability to even get business. Then another one is site visits. We're looking at that. How many site visits have our operations teams actually made to the job sites in the field? So another KPI is our labor percentage. So we are looking at labor as a percent of total revenue, because we feel like this is the thing that it's the most controllable line item that is also the biggest driver of our profit margin, and it's one we certainly have a lot of control over. So it's one that we're wanting to track. So we're looking at that every month and seeing what that looks like month over month. And it should change. For instance, as I'm looking at how we did in April versus how we did in February, for instance, February's got much fewer, a couple of fewer working days in it than April, for instance, or March. And so we would expect those percentages to be down in February and higher in March and April. The next thing that we're looking at as a whole is net promoter scores. So we're looking at customer net promoter scores, and this is, and also employees. So one of the things is we think about how we're doing as an organization. We want to know how we're doing financially from a health standpoint. We also want to know how well we're doing serving our customers. And so the way that we're targeting that is we're using net promoter scores. And so we're getting feedback from customers using the net promoter score system to gauge that. And we have a certain number that we're trying to hit, and we are measuring how well we're doing. And then we do the same. We want to know how we're taking care of our customers. We also want to know how good or how well we're taking care of our employees. And so we do a net promoter score with employees as well. And then another number that we're looking at is employee turnover. So we want to see how that is. So on this front page, that gives us sort of a snapshot of the company as a whole. We're looking at these numbers as a whole. How have we done as a company with net promoter score? How have we done on the employee net promoter score? And then what does turnover look like? Because we feel like that's also a representation of some of the things related to the company and how we're doing. So on the second page of this report, so it's a 2-page report, we essentially have replications of the first page, except now we're breaking it down by region. And this is really helpful. It helps you to see how your regions stack up. Instead of having to, go after people like, hey, I don't think you're doing well here or here, or we need to improve here or here. This allows people to see that for themselves in front of everybody, and there's just something to the notion of peer pressure and having to report your results in front of other people that often is all the motivation you need to make some changes. And so, it doesn't rule out the need for a leader or a manager to step in and help remedy a situation or whatever. But this is something we're looking at. So we look at revenue by region and we rank them on this. We look at profit margin by region and we're ranking them so you can see how you're doing in those rankings compared to the other regions. And so for us, we have 7 different regions, and so we're comparing them with one another. Then we do the same for the Net Promoter Score and the Employee Promoter Score. So this is our customer experience, employee experience. And on these, we're looking at them on a quarterly basis, so it's a rolling quarter basis here. And so we rank, again, everybody on how well their Net Promoter Scores are. And so this gives us an idea of, regions we can look at the regions that are most profitable, regions that have the happiest customers, have the happiest employees, etc. And again, this gives us all a picture of how things are going. And then we do the same for the site visits. I mentioned earlier on that first page, we have overall completion of site visits. And so we're looking here by branch. There's a certain goal that people have of the number of site visits they need to complete. And then we rank the percentages of who has the highest percentage of site visits as it relates to their goal, what they were trying to hit, what they were supposed to hit. And we're ranking those. And we do the same for partnership meetings as well. That's actually one I don't think we've been doing, but we're moving towards monitoring that as well. And then we do the same for the turnover numbers, the lost business, and the direct labor. And so, stacking them, ranking them all by branch. So this is, as I review this, it's really helpful. And Brian Lewis, our company president, is who puts this together each month. And I assume he gets some data from, a couple of from maybe our HR person or ops people to help compile this. And a lot of this information is, coming out of our financial software. They were able to pull some reports to get some of these numbers. But putting this together, it helps our entire team get a picture of the company and how we're doing as a snapshot of where we're at any given point in the year. And it also helps me as one of the owners to be able to really quickly look and just see how the company is doing. So we use this as sort of the springboard to our meeting that we do once a month, and then we dive in and let our head of HR speak, Brian, our company president, speak, our Desmond, our ops VP of ops, will give a report and talk about how things are going there, and then we let each of the regional managers give a report of how things are going in their region. And so you get sort of a high-level view of things, and then you get sort of a boots-on-the-ground report of how things are going. And this makes for a pretty effective means of managing and being able to oversee and lead operations that are spread out all over the place and make sure that we're moving the company in the direction that we want, that we're hitting the numbers that we would like to have. So I would encourage you to do this. If you're not doing something like this, I'd encourage you to put together some kind of report that just gives you a bird's eye view of how the company is doing and other people in the company, so they can have a decent idea of how things are going. And I think you doing this, it'll give you some more clarity, which will then help you make better decisions in the long haul. So I know we share our financials and a lot of other things for those that are involved in our mastermind group. So if you're not part of that, you can have access to some of this kind of stuff that I'm talking about. We share some of that, and we've always found that it's helpful for others to be able to view somebody else's company and see how they're doing things. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Jordan at EliteBSC.com. There's a lot of resources at EliteBSC.com. And I hope this is helpful. I hope you can implement it, and I hope you see some results, and we will see you next time. If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to EliteBSC.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at elitebsc.com/mastermind.